Okay, I'd like to welcome you all to our online CPD session for teachers, which is AI in the Classroom with Connor Harrison. We are really excited to be able to offer these training sessions to all the schools that we work with. And this is currently our third one so far. And we are extremely grateful for all of those schools and teachers who take out the time to join us. I'll quickly start just by introducing myself. So my name is Rhiannon John, and I'm the education team leader here at 2B Enterprising. I'm sure I will have already met lots of you out in schools so far, but you'll be more familiar with the programme name, the Bumbles of Honeywood. So here at 2B Enterprising, we are passionate about teaching children enterprise skills and helping them to develop those skills to be their confidence, creativity, their problem-solving abilities that they need for the rest of their lives, really, for the future. And we believe here that by integrating these enterprise education into their learning, we can empower young minds to think critically, be able to work collaboratively, and turn their ideas into real-world opportunities. So we're very proud of what we do here. Okay, let's make a start on today's training session then. We are delighted and very lucky to have Connor Harrison from Tramshed Tech join us today to discuss AI in the classroom. With over a decade of experience in education and digital skills training, Connor is a passionate advocate for empowering individuals alongside organisations through learning and technology. Connor has recently joined Tramshed Tech, where he continues to work with schools to develop and deliver workshops which help to support the digital skills of young people and businesses. AI, as you'll all agree, is an extremely hot topic at the moment, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about it from Connor and about how it can support teachers and young people in the classroom. So enough from me. I'd like to hand you over to Connor Harrison from Tramshed Tech. Diolch, Connor.
Thank you, Rhiannon. It's very strange here. My name said in full. It doesn't often happen. And here my decade worth of experience makes me feel old. But it is true. Before this, I was at TechniQuest. Some of you may be familiar with. Maybe you've been to school trips recently. After that, it was a project called Techno Camps, which again, some of you may be familiar with. And now we're here talking digital skills through Tramshed Tech. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a quick crash course over the next 25-30 minutes in AI and how it's, or what it is, and how, more importantly, you can capitalize on it in the classroom and take that information and make your decisions on whether you want to A, use it yourselves, and B, if it's something you want to allow your students to use and in what capacity, if you do decide to go that way. So usually we start off with a little true or false exercise. Now I realize that there's some people who are in classrooms with other people. Some of you, for one reason or another, can't have your cameras on, so that's fine. If you want to shout out, then by all means. If you want to use the chat, that's fine. If you just want to discuss amongst yourselves rather than give me the answers that you think, that's fine as well. But the way this is going to work is I'm going to give you 10 statements about AI. Some of them are true, some of them are false. Maybe I've been tricky and they're all true, or maybe they're all false. That's up to you to decide. Like I said, if you want to bounce them back and sort of tell me which ones you think are true, which ones you think are false, by all means, use the chat or turn your microphones on. If for whatever reason you are not in a position to do that, but you are in a room with other people, you want to talk amongst yourselves, that's fine as well. So I got G. James, thank you. You got 8 true, question mark. Anybody think there's more than 8 true? Feel free to put a hand up if you can. No more than 8 true, so 8 true at the most. Anybody think 7 are true? Adam thinks
Nishan are saying, oh, sorry, Adam Reese saying 5 true.
5 true. Thank you, Tracy. So 5 true. Anybody think there's fewer than 5 true? Okay, so somewhere between 5 and 8 true statements. All in, the ones that are now highlighted, those are false. The rest are true. So we have 7 true statements, 3 false statements. I won't go through all of them because, in short, the answer is AI can and does do it in some capacity. Whether we're talking the commercial AI that we use and that I'll be talking through with you in a little bit, or whether we're talking more sophisticated specialist AI, that very much depends on the industry, the application, and so on and so forth. But in short, it is used in different industries for different purposes. It is used to improve, I guess that word improve is relative, but improve customer engagement, predicting weather patterns. It is used to interpret images. It is used to produce human-like, and that's always a key when they're human-like language. Can understand us. Again, the word understand is up for interpretation, but it is able to do all of these things. Where it does fall down is with creativity. So one of the big contentious points around AI is AI and images, and in more recent examples, video and music. It can produce them, but for lack of a better term, all it does is copy. So it's not inherently creative. It's not going to come up with the next Mona Lisa. It's not going to be the next Taylor Swift or anything like that. But it can produce those things. But it is copying from other people, which is one of the reasons why it's so contentious. But it's great for helping students with descriptive adjectives, creative writing, getting them to generate those images based on their creative writing skills and then refining them. So that's something we can talk about in a little bit. Not immune to bias and fairness. So we'll talk about that as one of the big downsides and drawbacks of AI. We'll talk about that towards the end. And it's not immune to being hacked and the drawbacks that come with that. It's one of the big issues one of the other big issues with AI is that you can't stop them from being hacked. Sure, you can put measures in place to make it more difficult, but it's still possible in the same way that your bank can be hacked, in the same way that your laptop can be hacked, your emails, so on and so forth. It can all be hacked. It's just the level of difficulty that that changes. So what do we mean by AI then? Well, it is a set of instructions, so an algorithm, or in different cases, different algorithms that is able to simulate human-like intelligence. So it's like us, but it's not like us. There are different types as well. I call them flavors. That's not necessarily the technical term, but it's what I call them. So when we talk about image recognition, when we talk about text, when we talk about problem solving, when we talk about understanding, these are all types of AI, but they are all different types of AI. We'll talk about this in a second, but there is one type of AI for each individual thing. There is not one overall all-encompassing AI. The one that most people are talking about, however, is something called generative AI. So when we talk about Copilot, ChatGPT, image generations, and pretty much anything that we have now come to recognize and use, that is all generative AI. It's just one more subsection of AI. And it all falls into one of 3 categories: narrow, general, or superintelligence. So this is almost like the scale of AI. So narrow AI or weak AI is AI that has been designed for a specific task, and it does that task. So think Siri or Alexa or Cortana. I apologize if they're shouting at you right now. But anything like that, that is an example of narrow AI. It is designed to listen to you, interpret your question, and then give you a response. That's all it does. It's sophisticated in how it does it, but it's still what it does. General AI is the next step up. So this is an AI that is capable of understanding and adapting to different tasks. So it's almost like Siri can tell you what the weather is, that's narrow, but if Siri was to adapt and evolve to general AI, it would not only tell you the weather, but it would be able to get you your umbrella and raincoat and sort of prepare you accordingly, rather than just telling you what the weather is. And then superintelligence is the next step up again. This is where the machines have surpassed us. They are smarter than us, they are faster than us, they are better than us. So think of it, as I said, like a tiered approach: narrow into general into superintelligence. Anybody who's worried about science fiction becoming reality, Skynet and sort of Ultron and those kind of things, that's your superintelligence kind of level. For what it's worth, to put people at ease, we're not there. We're not even at general AI. We are everything that we have, doesn't matter how sophisticated it seems or what job it does, it is narrow AI through and through. It does one job, and that is that. So when we look at ChatGPT in a little bit, it looks like it's doing lots of different things, but all it's doing is it's interpreting your question and providing you with a response. It can do that for lots of different questions and lots of different types of questions, but it's still doing the same thing. Or just a little bit of background, if you're curious, when are we going to get to these things? The answer is, how long's a piece of string? Depending on who you ask, you'll get different opinions. Some people will tell you we're 2 to 5 years away from general intelligence. Some people will say it's more like 10 years. Other people will say we'll never get there. It's very hard to quantify, because the definition is as intelligent as a human. And as anybody who works in a school will tell you, how do you define intelligence in a human? Everybody's different. So it's very difficult to actually say what that means and what that looks like. So when we talk generative AI, we're looking at something that can, or an AI that can produce, it can generate content for you, whether that is written content, whether that is spoken, whether that is images, music, video, the list goes on. It generates content. And it's capable of doing quite a lot. And just some examples on the screen for you now before I swap over and show you some practical examples. But summarizing, brainstorming, writing, from my point of view, some of the more useful ones, especially the brainstorming. The idea of being able to take a small idea and turn it into a fully fledged thing, that's really useful, especially if you don't have other people to bounce things off of. Extracting information, this is really good if you get given big bits of information, or from a student point of view, and this is up to you, if you want them to work on their comprehension skills, this is something that can help them with that. You can give them written text, you can give them stories even, and ask them to pull out the important bits, ask them to pull out main characters, and so on and so forth. So let me just stop sharing for a second and swap over my screens. This is ChatGPT. Anybody used ChatGPT before or using it already? A couple of people nodding. Hands up. Lovely. So it's a very useful thing. It does get a little bit of flack from some people because of what it is and the way it works and so on, but it's very useful. And I just want to show you a couple of things or uses of it from your point of view as a teacher, how you can make the most out of it. It is worth mentioning right now that I'm using the Pro version, and I do get asked, is it worth investing in the Pro version? Is it worth getting Copilot Pro or Gemini Pro or whatever your poison is? My answer is always try the free version first. If you find that you're using it a lot and you're getting hit by you've reached your limit for the day, you've reached your limit for the day. If you find that's happening to you, then maybe think about investing in the Pro version. In terms of which one you want, I found in my experience, it is a pick your poison. It's horses for courses. They're not really that different from each other. They all do the same thing, but they are slightly more geared towards one thing than the other. And I'll show you a couple of examples before we finish. So one of the big uses of generative AI, that's something that does happen a lot, is a lot of people are starting to go towards the Copilot route rather than ChatGPT, because Copilot is built into Microsoft. Microsoft is built into lots of platforms, and they think that it's more secure. I'm not saying it is, or I'm not saying it isn't, but that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are using Copilot now instead of others, is because people are gripped in the Microsoft sphere, which I'm not going to say it's wrong or right, but that's the way it works. It's worth pointing out that what I'm showing you here, you can do in Copilot as well. So if you are thinking about, oh, well, I can't do this, you can do the same in Copilot. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to add things in, and then you can use those as basis of information. You can use them to interrogate information, and so on. So what I'm going to do, and just going to grab something out of my files. I'm going to grab the AOLEs and the DCF. I'm just going to give ChatGPT access to these. Now, if you ask ChatGPT or any AI, does it know about these? Can it find them? It's going to tell you yes. And that's one thing to bear in mind. AI will always say yes. It's trying to give you the answer you want, not the right answer. So bear that in mind, okay? It's never going to give you, sorry, it doesn't know the right answer or not. It just gives you the answer it thinks you want. If you wanted to specifically talk about a thing, the best thing to do is give it the version that you're happy with and tell it to use that. So even though you can grab the AOLEs from Hub, or you can find them elsewhere, same goes to the DCF, you can link the web page and that works, but it works better if you can say, here's a document that I've made, or here's a document that I've downloaded, use this document. It works much better there. What happens otherwise, it starts to get a little bit confused, and it does start to make things up. So let's ask it to summarize this for me. There we go. So we summarize these. It should tell me something along the lines of, we've got the descriptions of learnings of the different AOLEs, DCF, and the progression steps. So it's everything you'd find in the curriculum. So now what we can do is ask it to help me build a lesson. So let's say I want to build a lesson around, let's say I want the Romans, and I want it to have a humanities link, and I want it for key stage progression step 3. I don't mind description of learning. Description of learning. And off we go. So this is that idea of brainstorming that I was talking about. Now you might have an idea already, and you can start going and bouncing it back and forth. But what I've done there is just given it a brief pointer. It knows what I know what it has access to now, because I've asked it to summarize, so I know it knows what it's got. And I've given it a quick thing. So it's going to give me a lesson on the Romans, on humanities, progression steps 3. It's pulled out a rough age group. It's given me then description of learning, what that progression step needs to do. And then, it's given me different options then. So here's description 4, and it's going to give me these things, and so on and so forth. So I might say, okay, I like this one. I haven't read this one, so I'm just going to grab it, and I want to expand on this. So I'm going to take this. I could also just say, actually, let me say, let's expand on option B. And I don't worry about spelling. So it's able to reference its own answers. as well. So you don't have to copy and paste. You don't have to type them out again. If you see something you like in the previous answers, just tell it, I want this one. It will also remember all of this. So this, what they call a chat now, everything here will stay here until I delete it. So you see on the left-hand side, I have my chats over here as well. So we can then build on this and it'll give me the lesson outline. For example, it'll give me, the whole thing is the lesson outline. So learning intentions, success criteria, what it's going to look like in rough time frames. And then it breaks it down into cross-curricular activities. I didn't ask it for that, but it's done that for me. It's given you assessment opportunities and then a plenary and then reflection. Now, I haven't read through all of that. We don't have the time to go through that, but we could, and we could refine that. And I could ask it more questions, say, can we do this? Can we do this? How about this? I have a student with additional learning needs. Can I adapt something for them? I have 3 students that are match students. Can we add in something extra for those? You can do all of that and it will be able to build it out. I just want to show you a couple of other examples of ways you can do it. Use it. Here's one I made earlier. So this one is answer selection guidance. This one was more a proof of concept from my point of view, but this is a marking guideline. What I've done is I uploaded a course workbook. So this isn't necessarily aimed at schools. This is a different thing, but the theory translates. So if you have, let's say, your slideshow, your workbook, or something like that that you've given your students and they've had to then learn from that and answer questions, you can then have this mark those questions for you. So that idea of sitting there going through page after page after page, if they can do it online, you can upload the work and say, okay, so what did I say? Use these documents to choose the right answer of the questions I give you. So here's the question, and it's then told me the answer and why that answer is right. I could change this and it could be something along the lines of, here's my workbook. Here's a document that my student has produced. Can you tell me if it's right or not? Or can you grade it? And it'll go through, and as long as the information is in the workbook to start with, it is able to pick those out and is able to then cross-reference and give answers. And then from a student point of view, one of the big benefits, if you did want to go down that route of allowing your students to use AI, and I'm not necessarily going to recommend for or against that, I think there is use in it, but I think there is a line that needs to be toed, and it's more of an education. This is how you use it rather than get it to do all your work for you. Then comprehension is a big thing. Asking students, picking out the important points. We've all been there, either now or when we were in school. We had those long maths problems where it was like Rhiannon went to the park and she picked up 7 pine cones. She saw her friend Tracy and she gave her 2 pine cones. How many pine cones does Rhiannon have? Those kind of questions that certainly stump students, especially when you get more complicated than whatever I just said. But being able to feed those in and show students how to then use these tools to get those kind of answers, and asking them, more importantly, how does it come, the reasoning behind those answers, is something that is capable of doing. It can reason, it can then explain its thought process. You can see here where I've asked it to give me the answer, it's given me the answer, then it's told me why it's given me that answer. So it's able to do those things. Comprehension is a big thing. Personal learning plans as well. If you can give it enough information about the student, not necessarily names and ages and personal information, but certainly this is the student, this is their areas of strength, these are the areas of weakness. I want to get them from progression step 2 to 3 in this subject. It is able to then personalize things for them, and the more information you're able to give them in terms of what they struggle with, spelling, for example, or numeracy, for example, those kind of things work really well. One other thing that I'll show you before we talk very, very briefly about pros and cons is research. Now, ChatGPT is useful for it, so is Copilot. But one thing that it does do, and we'll talk more about this in a second when we talk about cons, is it does have a habit to hallucinate. And that's the correct term, is hallucinate. Just to give you an example, I've been working on a project on a different thing where I uploaded it, something 100 pages worth of work, and asked it to summarize it for me. It told me it read the whole thing. It then gave me conclusions which were completely made up, because when I interrogated it and asked it why it got those conclusions, it's because it read the first 5 pages and decided to go do the rest itself. So bear that in mind. It is useful, but you do have to be clear with it, and don't give up on it either. If it does something and it does it wrong, tell it why it's done it wrong, tell it it's made a mistake, and it will correct itself. There are limits to it, but it will correct itself. So in mine, I told it, how did you get that? It said, well, I did this. And I said, well, don't do that. Do it properly. And it said, okay, I'll do it properly. And they did it properly. But in terms of researching, I want to talk to you about this tool called Perplexity. It's another generative AI tool, similar to ChatGPT, similar to Copilot, and so on. This one is very good at for research. Not necessarily because it doesn't hallucinate. It hallucinates less, but more importantly, it cites its sources automatically. You can get other platforms, Copilot, for example, to cite its sources, but Perplexity will do it for me. So let's talk about the Romans. Tell me about the Romans. And where it has the search bar here, or box, I can choose, wrong one, not the search bar, sorry, the sources over here. So search, if you've got the Pro version, or you can try the Pro version with the search one. But with the little world over here, if I click on that, I can determine where it finds its information from. So is it going to use the web? Is it going to use academic papers? Is it going to use social media and similar kinds of topics? And I can pick and choose those. So actually, I don't want you to use the web. I want you to use academic papers, for example, and so on. I can click it, search. I'm going to do both, actually. And what it'll do, it'll generate responses for me. But what you'll see is at the top here, it has given me its sources first. And then where it has summarized this information, so origins and explanations, it's given me the 2 sources that it used to pull those bits of information out. So if you are researching a topic, taking this bit here, maybe it's something you want to do, maybe it's not. But you can read this and realize this is what I'm looking for. Let's go and learn a bit more from the website itself. Think of it as almost like an advanced Google. And in fairness, Google does this automatically now as well. Google has built Gemini into it automatically. So when you search things in Google, you will usually get something like this. Sorry, something like this, which is a bullet-pointed breakdown of what you just asked it, with then the websites that it has found. But Google does tend to use sponsored searches as well. There's one more tool I want to talk to you about, which is called Teachable Machine. Now, this one is a free tool. It's Google made. Just Google Teachable Machine, and it'll take you through everything. This is something that you can use to build your own AI systems and teach your students how AI works. It's relatively simple. On the left-hand side, where you have class 1, class 2, and then you can add more classes, you define what you're teaching it. So we do this as part of our workshops, and we do this with colors. So we'll have class 1 is red, class 2 is blue. We then get students to go and search the internet to find pictures of red things. They then save them to their computer and upload them here. So upload their pictures of red things. They do the same thing for blue. Click train, and then their webcam will turn on. And if they show it red things and they've done enough training, it will tell them that's red. If they show them blue things, it'll show them that this is blue. And then you can build this on and add a different color, add a not red, not blue option, things like that. But it teaches students softer skills in terms of searching the internet, downloading files, folder structure, and things like that. But it also teaches them about quality of data, because this is one of the big things when it comes to AI is the more data you have, the better it's going to be. The better the data, the better it's going to be. So if your students put things in here which are red and other colors, it's not going to work as well as just things that are red, so on and so forth. Any questions on those before I move over just to finish off talking pros and cons, which is always fun.
Is it similar to the Raspberry Pi?
In what sense? Because the short answer is no, but I know you can do similar things with a Raspberry Pi. Yes, but it's a little bit different from there. So you can do similar things with the Raspberry Pi, and there are lots of different options and lessons that you can do with a Raspberry Pi. Teachable Machine is specifically for AI. So if there is a Raspberry Pi lesson which is about AI and machine learning, which I'm not familiar with, but if there is, then I'm going to probably say yes, it is similar. But the Raspberry Pi can do more things than just that one thing. I hope that answers your question. To finish off then, in terms of pros and cons, because this is one of the big talking points, is should we use it, shouldn't we use it, and so on. Pros from a teaching point of view, if you use it right, it can speed up a lot of processes, lesson planning, marking, just to name two. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you you should use AI to plan all of your lessons. And even if you do, I'm not going to tell you to use those verbatim, because it will make things up, it will make mistakes, and it will generalize. And I think that's probably the key there, is it will generalize. But you can give it guidance and you can build things, and certainly from an idea, turn that idea into a more fully formed lesson plan in a few minutes rather than a few hours or a few days. From a student point of view, it does improve accessibility. And we're just talking about generative AI, but you think of being able to add subtitles or closed captions. You think about being able to have screen readers and students being able to have written words read to them so they understand how they sound, how they're supposed to sound. And students who are very bad at typing or can't type very well can talk into the microphone, talk to the computer, and their text will appear. All of those are uses of AI. They're just ones that fly under the radar when we have things like ChatGPT now. And then I briefly mentioned the idea of personalized learning plans. You can tell AI bits about students, bits about your classes. Obviously, be careful what you share with them. But that idea of, I have a class of 30 students, 25 of them are within the quote unquote norm, but I have 2 or 3 that are more able and talented. I have 2 or 3 that require additional assistance. Can you help me build plans and lessons around these kinds of things? And it is able to then differentiate things for those math students, for those additional learning needs students. Again, back to my point on don't take things verbatim. It does require more work to sift through the right things that it's given you and then produce those lessons. But again, it's turning something that would take you 30, 40, 50 minutes and turn it into a 10, 20-minute task, because it's able to bounce those things back and forth. In terms of cons, one of the big ones that people don't realize is environmental impact. And certainly if you're in lessons on green, sustainability, renewable energies, those kind of things, AI is a good talking point, because in order to use it, it requires electricity, it uses water, it is very inefficient in those regards. So it does take energy and it does contribute to climate change and things like that. Not to mention the waste is produced when creating the computer systems and things like that. There is an argument of dependency Now, this is something that I tend to relate to other technologies as well. Technology is there to make our lives easier. So you do tend to lose skills by using technology, but AI is exasperating that if you over rely on it. And that's where that education on this is how you should be using it versus how you should not be using it will combat those. So that idea of help use a tool in the same way that you might use a dictionary, you might use the internet, or you might use a calculator. You're not going to use those for every single thing that you do, but they are going to help you when it comes to working out complicated maths problems, how to spell a certain word, how to define a word, those kind of things. Similar approach to AI reduces that dependency, or certainly the loss of skills. And then bias and fairness. This is one of the big talking points, and truth be told, I could talk a lot more on just this one point alone, but I realize that people want to go places, so I won't talk too much on that. But this idea that AI is trained on data, and data, while we like to think of it as black and white, is flawed and it is skewed in some cases. And though those flaws and that skewed results will give you skewed results. So just be careful certainly when you're asking it questions that are more ambiguous. It doesn't necessarily have opinions. AI is by definition an algorithm, but the data it's fed on, it's trained on, they will be based on opinions. The best example is Siri and Alexa and things like that. There's videos all across the web of people trying to talk to them but doesn't understand them. That's an example of bias and fairness. It's not intentional. It's an inherent bias. People didn't recognize or realize that it would be a problem. But because their accents differ from the people who made it, they didn't realize that it would be a problem until it became a problem. And you see a lot of that in AI and the way it generates answers. So there's a lot to go through there in a relatively short space of time. I will pause and ask if anybody does have any questions. Unless there are any questions, let me just... So the one last thing I will leave you with is a website that you may or may not want to visit. Do a shameless self-plug here. But as everybody said, I work for a company called Tramshed Tech. We used to be, or at least I used to be, a big learning company. We're now one and the same. And the big learning company side of things, they deal with schools. So if you are interested in AI and you want to learn more, but more so than a 30, 45-minute quick fire tour that I've just given you, and you want us to come in and do a little bit more in terms of how Teach Machine works, how do I do more in-depth things with Copilot or ChatGPT, or how do I teach my students how to use it, we can do those for you. We can do workshops, not just on AI, but on other things as well. But if we are talking AI, we do have a pre-made AI workshop for students anywhere in the Key Stage 2 bracket. But if you're curious about this, I've shared the link to Big Learning Company in the chat, and click on our schools page, and everything you need to know is there, especially our workshops and information about our CPD. So unless there are any questions, I will stop sharing. I will hand back to Rhiannon, and I'll say thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed, and hopefully you've learned something.
A huge thank you, Connor. I don't know about anybody else, but I've definitely learnt some new things there, and it's just fascinating. More than anything, it's nice to have a better insight on it, and maybe possible ways that we can use it within a school. Thank you so much. Your expertise is fantastic, obviously. And this is what you do, for a living. And like you've said at the very end, you do offer these workshops for teachers, for businesses, and so on, for them to come and learn a little bit more about it. I just also wanted to say that we've got another CPD session hopefully coming up in March. We in the process of finding a speaker, but when we do, as soon as we know, we shall let you know, so you can jump on board as well. We are going to send you a feedback form via your school office. I'm assuming it'll probably go to the office. If you wouldn't mind spending 5 minutes just to fill it in, there's a few questions on there from Connor, and there's a few questions from us at 2B Enterprising as well. So if you wouldn't mind filling that in and sending that back, we'd be really, really grateful. And thank you again so much, everybody. So Connor, thank you, and thank you to all the teachers for your time. I know you're very, very busy. You've got lots to be getting on with. So I hope you found it useful, and you might be able to implement some of these things in your teaching yourselves, and hopefully to help you utilize some time as well as things like that. So any questions from anybody now, just before we do go? There's a few things coming in, Trace. I'm not sure. Oh, somebody's saying thank you. You're welcome. Right, thank you very much. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And Connor, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And hope you all have a lovely evening. And I hopefully will see you in schools very soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra.
Bye, everyone.